All right, now that we have our text in place, let's go ahead and push the design further. One of the things I'm going to do right out of the gate is go ahead and license this photo because I can tell right away I'm going to get tired of looking at this watermark and I know we're going to use it. So I'll go ahead and come over to that original image here. I'll right click on it and I'll click on license image. And it's going to ask me if I want to use one of my licenses here. I'll click OK. And then as soon as that's done syncing here, that watermark will go away. And in the meantime, I can keep pushing my design forward here. So I'm going to click on the title. I'll hit the letter T to get my text, my type tool. I'll hit Command A to highlight all of that. And I'm going to jump over here to my fonts, and I'm going to use Proxima Nova for my title here. And let's jump over to one of the extra bold versions. Maybe even black. We'll jump into the black version just so that way it's as big as possible to get the biggest impact with that minimal space we have. And let me just try this too. I'm going to go ahead and jump this to 2 or 3 lines and just see how big it gets. So maybe we cut out rentals here. I'm going to hit Command X to cut that. I'll drag a copy of this down, hit the letter T, highlight all of this, and hit Command V to paste that back in. The only reason why I did that is so I can move this independently. It'll be a little bit easier to work with. I'll hit Command A to highlight that, and let's bring this down to maybe a light, just so there's a good contrast between the titles here. Alright, let's see how this is looking here. And there's no right or wrong. You can do whatever you want, whatever looks good, however it's going to play out, whatever, gets their attention and hopefully has a good call to action. So in this case, if they're interested in the rentals, they'll see this and they can pick up your brochure. All right, so another thing that I've talked about in some of these previous lessons too, I could spend all day long playing with typography and nudging things around in place and just trying to get them perfectly set. So for your sanity and my own, I'm going to force myself to just stop right now. Seriously, I'm going to stop. I'm about to stop. Okay, there we go. I'm just going to stop so that way we can come back to that later and push that further if we want to, but you can see how you could easily spend a lot of time there. Next, what I'm going to do is click on this text in the back. I'm going to set that to Proxima Nova as well. And we'll probably jump to, let's try regular first and just see how that treats us. And one thing we have going on here, I don't even know where I learned the shortcut, but if you hit Command, Shift, and the letter K, it'll change from your regular case here to all caps. And I had brought this in apparently with all caps. I'm going to hit Command, Shift, and letter K, and it'll bring it back to my sentence case, or my title case, whatever it was when I brought it in. And then I'm going to jump over to my character window here. And if you don't see that, jump up here to Window, go down to Character. I'm going to reset my leading to auto, and then right here I'm going to hold over this and set my tracking to 0 just to kind of get it set back to its default setting. Okay, so now we can see that we do have a problem as far as being able to see this text over the cloud and that watermark, which I'm kind of surprised hasn't updated yet. So let's take a look at that real quick and just see what's going on. I most likely bought some other image that I didn't mean to buy. But we'll let it just think about it here for a second, and if it's not done loading by the time we're done with this video, we'll get it fixed. So what I'm going to do now is I need to consider whether I want to have this directions text up here at the top or maybe break it up a little bit here. So what I'll do is I'll grab this text, this phone number, I'll hit Command X to cut it, and I'll paste it in its own text box down here, Command V to paste. Just kind of scale that up a bit. So that wouldn't be bad. Let me turn my guides back on here. That's just Command and the semicolon key. Just turning those on and off here. Let me turn that on though, and what I do sometimes, I'll hit the letter U and I'll drag a rectangle between my guides, so from one guide to the other. And that way what I can do is shift click on my text, and then I have my alignment options, and I can make sure that this is dead center between these guides. Sometimes what will happen is you might have it off a little bit, so by shift clicking and hitting center, I can make sure that this is aligning to those guides. Alright, so I got my text in place here, and let's bring down this Facebook link. I don't need the whole HTTPS, so let's just do facebook.com/ and we'll delete that here. And I'll drag down another copy of this, so hold on Alt, click and drag, Command V to paste that link in here. And it needs a little more room, so what I'm going to do is just drag this out a little bit. By holding down Alt, it drags both sides at the same time. All right, so we got our link in there. That's looking good. And again, I'm trying to roll through this as fast as I can so you get a pretty good idea of, you know, my workflow, but at the same time not having to sit here watch me make every single decision that I'm doing here. All right, so let's take a look at this one more time. All right, so we're really going to need to darken this up, or maybe let's try making our text darker. So I'm going to click on this blue to get me close, and then I'm going to double click on my thumbnail and then just drag down or click down a little bit more just to get something in the same tone but much darker, and I'll click OK. And now I'll click once on that text and I can hit Alt-Delete to fill that layer with the dark blue. And that's better if I'm on this white cloud area. I'll go ahead and resize my text box a little bit. Command A to highlight my whole artboard, and then now I can hit the center key to center that as well. And I'm going to align this left. So I'll click on my paragraph tab down here and click on the left align. And let's just kind of tweak this a little bit more. This is 14 point. Let's bring it down to 12 point. That looks a little bit better. And then our title, let's make this also be this extra bold, just for kind of branding consistency. And then also I'm going to double click, hit Command Shift K to make those all caps. Command Alt and the right arrow key to kind of track it out a little bit. And that's getting better. And again, I could spend all day here, so I'm just going to kind of get it close. Now the next thing I want to do is work on this left panel and make it maybe a little more visually appealing. So what I'm going to do is hit the letter U to get my rectangle tool here. We'll go to my fill and we'll change it to white. I'm just going to click and drag to get it started. Now I'm going to hit Command T to free transform this up to the top left and down to the bottom right. I'll hit return to commit that, and I'll hit Command Shift and the right bracket key to bring it all the way to the front of my stack. But now I can't see that text behind it, so I'll turn it off. I'll click once on this text and I'll do the same thing, Command Shift right bracket to bring it all the way to the front, and now I can turn my rectangle back on, but we can't see that text. So let's change the color of that text. I've still got that blue selected here, so I'll just hit Alt-Delete to fill that with that same color. And I want to make this text the same size. So what I'll do here is I'll highlight this. I'll jump over to my character styles and paragraph styles windows, and again, if you don't see those, jump over here to window and make sure they're turned on down here. I'm going to create a new layer style using what I've selected here, and we'll just call this body, and it's going to keep all those character settings that we have. I'll click OK, and now what I can do is highlight this text, hit Command A, and apply that body style to it. I'm going to click on this little arrow down here, which will reset it so that way it matches exactly without any extra styling on it. And now I need to grab this heading as well. So let's make a new paragraph style for this heading. So I'll click on that and then add that new paragraph style. We'll call this heading. And I'll click OK. And I'll apply that over here to this word about as well. So I'll click on the word heading, and now we have identical layouts. And the bonus or the benefit to this is I can at any time, let's say I want to change this color, I can double click on the body font and change the color to maybe more of a grayscale. And by doing that, it's going to change both of these at the same time. Alright, so we're getting closer. Now what I want to do is just bring in some design elements and maybe make this thing pop a little bit better. So let's go ahead and maybe grab this paddleboard image. I'll kind of scale it down into place here. Get it close, and that looks pretty good. And then I want to add some more visual interest behind here. So what I'm going to do is find maybe this mountain image, or maybe this is a good spot to jump over to like pexels.com that we've been looking at before and find a nice mountain photo, because this lake actually is in the mountains. So let's go ahead and find, let's see, a good mountain shot like this right here. So I'll click once on this image, and I'll click on the free download button here. I'll right click and save image as, and I'll save this to my assets folder so I have it for later. Let's come back to my desktop, to this brochure file, assets, photos, and I'll throw it in there. And then I'm just going to click and drag right into my Photoshop icon just so I have it in here to start working with. And what I'm thinking here is I'm going to click and drag into my brochure, and I'll drop it right over here into that About panel, and I'm going to hit Command Shift and U to desaturate this. Now I'm going to hit Command L to bring up my levels, and I'm just going to play with this a little bit. I'm just going to lighten it up a lot, actually. I'll play with the contrast here and my levels overall. And what I'm looking for is just a subtle effect. So I'll bring this back down behind my text, and then I'm going to bring my opacity down to maybe like 20 or 30%, just enough that it's kind of showing up there. I'm going to hold down Alt and click so it masks behind this rectangle shape. And then let's go ahead and turn my guides off and maybe drag this text up a little bit here. I'll drag this shape down, maybe scale it down a touch. So all I'm really looking for here is just, again, just a little bit of visual interest, just to kind of set it off so it's not stark white here. All right, maybe even I'll hit the letter 2, which will change this layer to 20%. You can hit your number keys to get any percentage you want here on the opacity. All right, that's looking pretty good, and I like where it's going. Now the other thing I want to start doing is adding some textures and just kind of cleaning things up a little bit. So I'm going to highlight all this text. I notice as I move this up, not all of this had that paragraph style applied to it. So let's go ahead and find that and fix it real quick. We'll click on that body and reset it. Okay, so now I can't see that at all. So I'm just going to highlight it, and I'll change this from a gray to a white. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, so I like the direction this is going. Now the only few things I want to do now is create some elements that we'll be able to repeat through all of this. So I actually have a texture that we can use in one of the asset files. It's a vector halftone. So what I'll do is double click on this to open it up in Illustrator. I'll click once to highlight that shape and hit Command C to copy. We'll jump back into Photoshop and hit, well, before we paste it, let's see where we're going to paste it. I kind of want to put it all over the place, but let's jump into, actually let's put it right in the front and see what happens. We'll hit Command V to paste it as a smart object. I'll hit OK. And now that texture comes in front of everything. So it kind of looks like a mess. So let's kind of selectively add this to things. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit delete. I'll click once on this photo to come back down to this layer. And now I'm going to hit Command V to paste that again. And it'll paste right in front there of this photo. And I'm going to drag it down below the image here. So that way it only shows up in that textured sky area. I'm going to change my blend mode to multiply, and let's drop the opacity down to about 50% by hitting the letter 5 or the number 5. There we go. And now we've got this subtle texture that's kind of come in. Maybe make it a little more subtle than that. I'll hit the letter 3 to make it 30% instead. All right, so now we can add that texture over here to this white section as well. So I'll click on this rectangle. I'll hit Command V to paste that again as a different shape. And this time I'll hit Alt and click down on that rectangle to mask it inside of the rectangle. And I'm going to make this much lighter, so I'll hit the number 1 to get a 10% screen. And that way it's still there. It kind of shows up as one whole pattern, but it doesn't show up quite so dark. And there we go. All right, so that's looking pretty good. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look at the inside and get that ready to go. One more thing I wanted to add to this was this watermark actually never did update. So looking at my library asset, I did license it. I've got the little blue check mark, so I know it's licensed. So when we come down, let's click on this layer here. We can see that the cloud icon has a yellow icon over the top, telling me that it's been updated in the cloud, but it actually hasn't updated on this layer. So what I'm going to do is right click on the title here. And then I've got a whole bunch of options here, but what we're looking for is update modified content. So let's go ahead and click on that. And just like that, the watermark goes away. It's now updated to the cloud, and we are good to go.